Hey, what's up guys, this is Tristan, and today I'm going to be doing my big manga collection video as of December 2018. I currently have roughly 480 volumes, and like usual, I'm going to be doing the tops of the shelves first, then the white one, then I'm going to be working my way down to the third one over there. So without further ado, let's jump into it. Alright, so starting off my collection is actually something I got pretty recently on eBay, and that's Dragon Ball 1 and 2. And Dragon Ball Z 1 through 24, and obviously there's a big gap between, Z and Dragon Ball, and the last two volumes are missing, so that's definitely going to be the next, pickups I do, but, for now, I think this was a pretty good purchase for the price. After that is Fullmetal Alchemist volumes 1 through 27, the complete box set, in all of its shimmering glory. It can't get better than that. But basically my thoughts on Fullmetal Alchemist is, I think it's a very good series. It's definitely one of the best shonens I've read. I definitely think that some people might not want to read the manga just because, the art style is a little bit dated. It looks more like the 2003 anime than the, Brotherhood anime. But I definitely think that it's a manga worth checking out. I think that the beginning, might be hit or miss for some people, but as it goes on, it really hits the nail on the head over and over again, and the ending is one of my favorite, shonen endings of all time. So definitely check out Fullmetal Alchemist because the box set is a really good deal, and you don't want to miss out on it. Next up is one of my favorite manga series of all time, Hunter x Hunter volumes 1 to 34. And, with the volume 0 over here, which was actually the Kurapika backstory, this is pretty rare. It's only in Japanese, and then 33 in Japanese. And Hunter x Hunter is a very good series overall. I would definitely recommend it. I know a lot of people are kind of, scared to get into it because of all the hiatuses and whatnot, but I definitely think that 32 is a very good stopping point. But, the recent arc has been pretty interesting. It's definitely been, I guess, more wordy than some of the other stuff, but once it kicks off, I think after Togashi kind of puts out more content, I think it's going to be, a lot better, just reading it in bulk. And I one day hope to go back and read all the Dark Continent volumes as a whole, because that would be really enjoyable. And I think one day, that's going to be possible, but for now, it's a long ways away. But, we definitely have some very good volumes in print, and, it's not something to take for granted, because Hunter x Hunter is one of my favorite manga series of all time. The anime is probably a little bit better, honestly, but, the manga still is a little bit underappreciated for, what it is. Some people overlook it and just, look at the anime, but both are amazing. Starting off the interior of the shelf is One Piece 1 through 21. It's a 41, and, it just keeps going. We got the spicy figurines looking pretty fresh, going down here all the way to 87, and I'm pretty sure there's like 1 or 2 volumes that are out that I don't have yet, and I kind of want to get those because I want to cap off Whole Cake, and then after that I might just wait a little bit until some more Wano volumes come out, because I'm caught up online and I've actually been liking that arc so far, but I think that I would enjoy it, a lot more if I was, reading it in bulk by the volume. So after, a few volumes of Wano are printed, I'll pick those up and probably, reread some of that stuff. So my overall opinions about One Piece is I think that it's a pretty solid series. I definitely don't think it's nearly as good as it used to be, and, I don't really enjoy it nearly as much as I used to, but I definitely do think it's, a series worth reading. But some of the New World stuff, I really did have to force myself to read it just because of how slow it is and how overly complex the pages have been looking. But I actually enjoyed Whole Cake overall. I thought the end, was pretty slow, but I did think that, it was definitely the best New World arc overall. After that is Death Note volumes 1 through 12, and I'm pretty sure everyone has read it, so I don't really need to talk about it, but I definitely prefer the anime over the manga. But both are pretty solid. After that is Bakuman 1 through 21 by the same artist and writer of Death Note, and even though it's a very good series and it definitely has some very good characters, I definitely think that it's way too wordy and pretty much every volume felt like I was reading a novel, and that's definitely not what I want to see in a manga series, so for that, I don't really like it as much as a lot of other people do. but I definitely think it's a very good insight on the manga industry, and it's worth reading, for that reason alone. After that is two series by Shuzo Oshimi, Flowers of Evil 1 through 11. Two of these are in Japanese, but I read those online. And Happiness 1 through 8, which I'm actually caught up to online, and I've been reading the volumes again as they've been coming out. And, both of these series are some of my favorites. If you haven't read them, I would strongly recommend it. I'm actually caught up to his other ongoing manga called A Trail of Blood, which doesn't have an English release, but it's definitely a very good series. And I've read a good chunk of Inside Mari, but, I've never really finished it before, so I'll probably get around to that eventually. Starting off the interior of the second shelf is Bleach 1 through 21. These 21 volumes consist of one of my favorite manga arcs of all time, and even though I think this arc is very good, the next arc is pretty much the same thing, but not as good. I've read up to volume 36 online, and even though Will Kiora is one of my favorite villains in the series, I definitely lost a lot of my interest in the series after volume 21, and I don't really have any intention of finishing the manga, but I do think that I might finish the Aranka arc at some point, because I've heard that has, a pretty good ending. Vinland Saga 1 through 7, and I'm not even over-exaggerating here when I say that, Vinland Saga is probably my favorite manga of all time. I just finished it, a few days ago. Well, volume 7 a few days ago. It's still ongoing, but it's very, very good. And if you haven't read Vinland Saga and you want to read, something about Vikings or a little bit of history in there, it's not a, historical fiction or anything like that, but it definitely has a lot of, nods to history. I would really recommend reading it because it definitely packs some heat. Next up is Blade the Immortal 1 through 15, and the series it's pretty good. It's a samurai series, and the fights are very well done. But the manga itself is a series that I didn't really enjoy nearly as much as a lot of other people did. And, that's not to say that it's bad, because it definitely is a very good series, but it's a series that if I had to choose between reading, continue reading all the seinen series in my collection, this series would probably be at the back of the list. And, again, that's not to say that it's bad or anything, because it's definitely really good. But compared to Vinland Saga, it's no competition. It's, Vinland Saga's, way better. We got Gyo, Tomie, and Uzumaki. I talked about all three of these recently in a video I made called Junji Ito, the Horror Story Trio, and if you haven't seen that video already, I would definitely recommend giving it a watch, because it's a pretty spicy one. Starting off the second half of this shelf is Moggy 1 through 21. And I'm actually currently on volume 9. I just started resuming the series recently, and I'm pretty hyped to read more Moggy, because 1 through 8 was pretty incredible, and I hear the series just gets even better from there. Behind Moggy is Naruto, volumes 1 all the way to 72, and 72 in Japanese. Complete series, and I know a lot of people think it's like the cool thing to do to hate on Naruto, and even though after volume 48, the series kind of, it's not really as good after 48. It definitely takes a dip in quality, but that's not to say that it's bad. I definitely think that Obito was pretty underrated, and, the Kakashi and Obito fight, probably one of my favorite fights in the series. Again, not as good after 48, but still, pretty enjoyable. But yeah, Naruto, pretty good stuff. It's probably my favorite out of the big three, even though it's not nearly as good as some of the other shonen stuff I've read. But I think that it's a series worth checking out. And yeah, it's some good stuff. I know that might just be because it's one of the first manga series I've read. But, still nonetheless, I think it's pretty good. And to finish off this shelf is the manga collection of short stories. This is Abandon the Olden Tokyo by Yoshihiro Tatsumi. Really good stuff. I definitely need to read more of Tatsumi's manga because I really enjoyed this one. And I hear that, his other collections of short stories are equally as good. So starting off the third shelf is One Punch Man 1 and 2 and Shaman King Volume 1, which I actually haven't read yet. And I don't know. I mean, I honestly got, 2 volumes of One Punch Man and the first volume of Shaman King because, I was kind of hyped to read the series at one point, but I'm not really too hyped to read it anymore. I might still pick it up again, that's why, I still own them. But I'm not sure. It's not really something that I'm too interested in now. I'm sure both series are really solid, but, it's not really a series that's on my priority list at the moment. So next up in my collection is Hajime no Ippo, Volume 1 in Japanese, and this is a series that if it gets published in English, I will undoubtedly pick it up because, I read the first volume online, and it was some really, really good stuff. It's about boxing, as you can see. It's like 1,000-something chapters at the moment, so I don't really want to ever catch up to it. But I definitely want to read a good chunk of it because it does look really promising. Next up is Berserk 6, 7, and 9 in Japanese. And I'm not sure if I'm going to keep these or not just because I didn't really get these like in Japan or anything like that. I just got these at a Japanese bookstore. Whereas, this one I actually got in Japan a few years back. But this one, I kind of like the way it's printed and everything like that. It's kind of cool to see. I actually got these before I, got the English volumes. So, yeah, not sure if I can keep these, but still pretty interesting to see them printed like that in general. Next up is Jocko, the Galactic Patrolman. This is a Dragon Ball spin-off manga, and I actually haven't read Dragon Ball yet, like I said earlier, so it's kind of hard to compare this to something, but I thought it was pretty good, and, it makes me want to check out Dragon Ball more. After that is Noragami 1 and 2, and this is actually a series that I've been meaning to pick up more of for quite some time, because I saw the first season of the anime a while back, and it was pretty solid, more of a manga type of guy in general, but I'm looking forward to reading the manga, because I hear it just gets better after, the first season of the anime, so I'm definitely looking forward to that. Lajin Demi-Human Volume 1. I really like the first volume of this, and I've been meaning to pick up more for quite some time. But, this series seems like it would be best read if it's complete. But I'm not sure how far it is till it's complete yet. But as of right now, I'll probably hold off on it. But eventually, I really want to read more Ajin because the first volume was definitely really good. Next up is All You Need Is Kill, and this manga is pretty repetitive, and I kind of get that's the point for it to be repetitive, but I feel like if I wanted to see a story like this, I'd much rather just, watch the movie Groundhog's Day instead of, reading this manga, but it's still pretty good, even though, I'd much rather watch the movie Groundhog's Day. After that, we got some Tokyo Ghoul 1 through 9. I read the rest of the series digitally, and it's pretty good. I mean, I really don't like how they made the second half of the series called Re, and they just kind of advertised it as like 2 different manga series because, it's not a different manga series, it's kind of just the second half of, Tokyo Ghoul. But I definitely want to pick up the remainder of the regular Tokyo Ghoul volumes physically because, the end of the series is pretty good. Neon Genesis Evangelion 1 through 14, one of my favorite manga series of all time. Really good stuff. The first 2 omnibus volumes really started off as just, a fun mech series, and it's kind of cool, even though, none of the themes are really introduced at that point. But the last 3 omnibus volumes are really, really crazy, and especially the last 5 volumes right here. Crazy stuff. If you haven't read Evangelion, I would definitely recommend giving it a schmack, because it's pretty dang good. Alright, Fist of the North Star Master Edition 1 and 2. I'm pretty glad I own these because this series is pretty influential even though it's out of print. And if it ever got a reprint, I might pick up part of it, but probably not in its entirety because honestly, quality-wise, it's nothing, amazing, but influential-wise, it's pretty good in that sense because it definitely inspired a lot of action series at that time. Blue Spring, this is a collection of short stories pretty much about the ghetto of Japan, and each story is pretty much about a new cast of characters getting themselves involved in a bad situation, and it's really entertaining. I would really recommend checking it out if you can get your hands on it. I'm pretty sure it's out of print, but it's not crazy expensive on eBay, even though it probably is more expensive than, you know, your average manga volume. Next up is the all-in-one volume manga, Helter Skelter. And this is a manga that I never hear anyone talk about, but it's definitely pretty good. I would recommend it if you want to read something unique. And basically what it's pretty much like Zoolander, but it's not funny, and it's pretty messed up. So if you want to read something like that, then you are in the right place. To cap off the top half of my third shelf, we got Astro Boy Omnibus 1. Pretty fun manga, not gonna lie. I think if someone was like 10 years old, they'd really enjoy this. But for me, someone who's not 10 years old, obviously, I think that it's not amazing to today's standards. And the binding is really horrible, and this one definitely one of the worst manga printings I've seen, just because the spine is smaller than the pages, so it kind of bows out like that, and it just looks really shitty overall. So yeah, I don't know what they were thinking on this one, but that gotta go. Starting off the second half of my third shelf is YuYu Hakusho 1 through 19. Good stuff right here by the author of none other than Hunter x Hunter. You know where it's at. I don't think that it's as good as Hunter x Hunter overall, but I honestly like the main characters better than Hunter x Hunter, even though both casts of main characters are pretty solid. But Yusuke Urameshi is probably either my first or second favorite shonen protagonist of all time. Not only that, but Toguro and Sensui are probably two of my favorite manga villains of all time, and they both come from one series, and that's pretty good, because a lot of manga villains are good, but they're not amazing, and, you know, Togashi really knows how to write some spicy villains. If you like the first 21 volumes of Bleach, if you like Naruto, if you like Hunter x Hunter, if you like Dragon Ball, I'm assuming, you'd probably love Yu Yu Hakusho, because it's pretty spicy. It's not as good as Hunter x Hunter, like I said, but that's definitely not to discredit it, because it's pretty great. I'm just gonna leave it at that. Next up is the family-friendly manga, Berserk 1 through 14. Really good stuff here. This is the Golden Age arc, and I'm excited to read the Conviction arc that goes to volume 21. But beyond that, I'm not sure if I'm going to read more, just because I've heard the series isn't as good after that point. But I guess I'll read the Conviction arc and see how I feel after that. After that is JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Part 1, and Part 1 was pretty decent. I didn't think it was incredible. I definitely think that the anime looks, 100 times more appealing, because the art style in this one it's okay, I guess. It's not really my thing, but I'm not sure. I'll probably continue the manga, because I hear the series takes a big step up after this point, so I'm definitely looking forward to that. But as of right now, I was a little bit disappointed by Part 1, but I think it was decent nonetheless. Next up is Black Clover 1 through 12, and I know a lot of people like to give Black Clover the cheese. Everyone likes to hate on Black Clover. And even though the first volume and a half is pretty much like a Naruto ripoff, I definitely think the series is pretty enjoyable. It's pretty decent for what it is, and I definitely think it's worthy of being one of the bigs. And as it goes on, it really starts to develop its own identity. I'm pretty sure around volume 4 or 5, it really, takes a huge leap up. And as it goes on, it just gets better and better for the most part. It's not a series that would be on one of my top manga lists at the moment, but I definitely think it's a series that I'm looking forward to reading more of. Next up is Parasyte volumes 1 through 8. Complete series. I read the series quite a long time ago, so I'm probably going to need to reread it at some point. And even though it has a much older art style than the anime, I definitely think both versions are very good. And yeah, it's an old horror manga, so if you're into horror manga, I would definitely recommend giving this a big schmack, and you don't want to miss out on that. So that's pretty much it for this video, guys. If you enjoyed, make sure to slap that like button, subscribe, and drop a comment letting me know what you think of this video or a series in my collection or something that I don't have. And with all that being said, I will see you guys in the next video. I have some bangers up my sleeve.